Cedric Thomas's comments about Alcorn State being a little team have started to make its rounds since SWAC Media Day, but there's an important part of the quote that's not getting nearly enough attention. Oh yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, Trey Holly is already impressing Coach Graves down there at Southern. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised that he made an impression this quick. Segment 2, Marquee Adams is already getting some offers from some SWAC schools. I don't know what his progression looks like throughout this summer/fall, though. Let's dig into his decision to transfer from Delaware State, as well as what his next location should attempt to provide for him. But we kick this whole thing off with a quote that has been making its rounds, and that's Cedric Thomas saying that his Alcorn State Braves were simply too small last year. They were a little team last year. And I think that this was, I remember during SWAC Media Day, this catching my ear, but not feeling like it was something that I needed to jump to. But it started to make its rounds, and I've been wanting to talk about it. We just had a lot of things to get through on the show before we finally got to this. And as I've been sitting back, paying attention, watching people write articles about it, I feel like there's a part of this quote that's being completely neglected. And it's a part of the quote that adds context to why he's calling them a little team beyond just the simple stature. That's obvious, and we'll address that as well. But this is way deeper than just you're not tall enough or you don't weigh enough. The idea of Alcorn being a little team, in my opinion, from his comments, is a mindset issue. It's a mindset and success issue. And I'll explain what I mean by mindset, because I don't literally mean they believe themselves to be little. But here goes the quote. He says, "We were a good little team. We won all the good little games. The big games and the big teams, they kind of just pushed us over. Coaches did an excellent job of being able to get a bigger product." And that last part is the focal point for these last, 10 or so days since SWAC Media Day. This has been the focal point for everything related to this. They were able to get a bigger product. But there's 3 ways that you could take this quote in general, and I'm going to break down all 3, starting with the most obvious of the bunch. Alcorn literally needs to get bigger. Simple and plain. Alcorn literally needs to be a bigger team than they were in 2024, and they went ahead and got that done. So this is what he says. He says, "Last year, the teams we fell short against just pushed us around. We were about 2 inches too short and 20 pounds too light. You definitely won't see a small ball club this year." Okay, I get you. That's unquestionable. I don't think that really needs to be elaborated on. I think that it's smart that they went and got bigger, and I'm going to tell you why they needed to get bigger beyond just what he pointed out. But there's not much to get to beyond just stating what he already stated, right? But I think that not enough people are paying attention to the "we were a good little team. We won all the good little games." Because now here comes to the mindset to me. And mindset is not really the right word. This is where we would place them as far as tiers go. Because I think that his words about size and little, it goes beyond just physical stature. It's something that's mental as well. It's a mental block. We have to be able to win big games. It's indicative of a bigger issue. When he says we're a good little team, the first thing that popped in my head is you can't win the big one. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm always dividing up teams with that philosophy, or if it's because right after he said we're a good little team, he said we won all the good little games. I don't know. Maybe that's why I immediately jumped to it, because it wasn't like it was a long pause in between. But what I can say is talking about getting bigger, playing bigger, being bigger, those are all different things. They're all different things. And for Alcorn, they have not been one of the elite programs in the SWAC for a couple of years now at this point. And if we're talking about where they stand, they are not in that top tier. They're a part of the group that can beat all these other guys. But when it comes to the top tier teams, they're not winning those games. Let's just look back at 2024 specifically. And remember, I'm using what Cedric Thomas is saying. This isn't just me saying this. So you look at the victories that Alcorn had in 2024. Grambling, UAPB, Texas Southern, Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M. The losses, Jackson State, Southern, Alabama State. That is the definition of being a good little team. That is the definition of winning the good little games, because you go through and you look at them. Grambling was 2-6. Mississippi Valley State 1-7. UAPB 2-6. Prairie View 3-5. Texas Southern 4-4. So you're looking at the 5 games that they won. None of them were against a team with a winning record. But you go to the teams that Alcorn lost against. Jackson State 8-0, SWAC champions. Southern 7-1, SWAC West champions. Alabama State 5-3, no champion attached there. But the point is, you played 3 teams in your conference with a winning record, and you lost to every single one of them. Your 5 victories, only one of them didn't have a losing record, and that was Texas Southern, who was 500. I think that we can clearly see what Cedric Thomas means when he says we won all the good little games. You face 2 champions, 2 divisional champions, 1 conference and national champion. And then with Alabama State, I would put them in that same category where it feels like Bama State typically wins, but then they lose against the top tier teams. That's how it feels, at least in the SWAC East off the top of my head. But, I'm thinking about FAMU and Jackson State for those years. They kept falling short against those squads. So you have 2 teams who are clearly above you. You have 1 team who was relatively even to you. Y'all both finished 5-3, and you lost those games. You lost those games, and that prevents you from being a top-tier program. That prevents you from being one of those teams. You can't be one of those squads if everybody you beat has a losing record or is 500. You just can't. You just can't. And I understand that maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not fair to compare them to Jackson State and Southern because they were the one in each of in their divisions. But A, that's what Alcorn is trying to be, and B, Alabama State, that loss still is on the resume. I think if you lose or if you beat Alabama State, maybe we talk about this in a different light. Lastly, you construct your team to beat the best. That's a regular principle in all of sports, right? Like when Golden State starts shooting all these threes, we need people who can shoot threes so that we can keep up with their scoring output. If you want to keep it in football, teams construct themselves to try to beat the Chiefs. You construct yourself to try to beat the Eagles, right? Like when we're talking about getting to the mountaintop in sports, there's already someone who is there. Sometimes that person occupies, or that team occupies that spot for a few years, and we know who the top dog is. They may not win every single year, but you understand they are always going to be in the mix. That's a team like the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs nomination has kind of made it to where none of the other AFC teams that I believe should be in that conversation, like Baltimore, like Buffalo, I feel like they're always consistent. But unfortunately, well, Lamar Jackson's health dependent for Baltimore. But unfortunately, they can't get past the Chiefs, so it feels like they're not that team to beat, but they're one of the teams that is always up there in the upper echelon. In the NFC, I don't feel like there's any consistent figure. I guess you could use the Eagles, but it still feels like the NFC is a conference that is kind of musical chairs-ish, but I would give the Eagles that nod because they just won the Super Bowl. But this isn't Locked on NFL. This is Locked on HBCU. The point is, you want to build yourself to defeat the top teams. So if the top teams are big and they're physical, if they have speedy wide receivers, you want to try to get cornerbacks that can defend speedy wide receivers. They have big physical guys. You want to get, big physical wide receivers. You want to get physical cornerbacks, right? Like if you see a team that continuously recruits the same kind of mold, then you have to build yourself to defeat that team. Otherwise, they will stay at the mountaintop. When it comes to squads like Jackson State, squads like Southern, you're talking about the teams that you lost and you got pushed around against. You have to get bigger. You do, simple and plain, because the top teams are getting bigger. The top teams have a Jeremiah Williams on their squad. The top teams have guys in the interior that are beefy. That's what they have. So you have to be able to combat that with beefy people of your own. Simple and plain. Now, as we push forward, let's get away from the trenches, but we're going to kind of keep it in the SWAC. Matter of fact, we're going to keep it with Southern and Jackson State because those are the two SWAC schools that have already offered Marquee Adams, the former Delaware State quarterback, since he's entered the portal. I want to get into what his journey is going to look like over this next or really just over this next month as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with the friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on and off the course, you need that extra boost to just get you through a morning, get you through a study session, get you through a long night where you have to be awake. And it's okay because golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev carts. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good with subscription orders, and whether you're meeting up with friends or trying your turn at 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order Transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On College Football because we are unveiling our top 100 college football player list today, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Central Time. So make sure that you are tuned in for that. Great content. Not going to be any HBCU players on there, but if you're a college football fan, it's something that you're going to want to tune into no matter what. Marquee Adams is a player who, if we're making a top 100 HBCU list, he's probably going to be on there, but he currently doesn't have a time. Doesn't have a time. He currently doesn't have a team, and he's hit the portal, and I think that he's entered in a very strange spot. I wasn't sure what the market for Adams was going to be like, but the day after he entered the portal, he had two HBCUs who said, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Southern and Jackson State. I'm just putting out some feelers. And the reason I say they're putting out feelers is because of the situations that they currently have. I don't know if they're looking at Marquee Adams to be a starter week one. I don't know if they're looking at Marquee Adams to be a starter year one. I know Jackson State isn't. But that's where we come into the dilemma. Because when it comes to Marquee Adams, I always say, hey, if you enter the portal in after the spring, you're probably the leading contender to be the starting quarterback. But there's a drastic difference between entering the portal after the spring and entering right before the season. There's a drastic difference than entering in the beginning of the summer or still within that spring season, not spring football, but like literally the calendar, right? And entering right before fall starts. Like there's a big difference in that. So I think that we have to draw that line, draw that distinction, because Marquee Adams is entering right before the season. And I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about Delaware State side of it, but it goes both ways. Delaware State, I thought was going to have a hard time. I still do. I still think they're going to have a hard time replacing Adams, not because they couldn't find a player, though I was skeptical about that. Not because they can't find a player, but because they have to prepare that player as well. So when you're looking at Marquee Adams and the decision to leave Delaware State, we previously looked at it from a school perspective. How are they going to replace him? How are they going to get acclimated with a new quarterback? Well, what about Adams? When does he find a home? The longer it takes for him to find a home, the shorter amount of time that he has to prepare for week one, if he wants to be a week one starter. The shorter time somebody has to prepare him. So on the Delaware State side, How are you going to find talent? You found that the next day. How are you going to get him acclimated? Time will tell. When it comes to Marquee Adams, we're going on half a week, so it's not a long time. But if we get into August 3rd, August 4th, and Marquee Adams doesn't have a home, you're now looking at about 3.5 weeks to grasp a system and hopefully step into a spot as a starting quarterback. I would only imagine that Adams is trying to do that because A, he's a competitor, and B, he has 2 years of eligibility left. So why wouldn't he want to go somewhere where he can start? And that brings up the part about his location, his destination. I don't know how selective you can be because as we're here now, as we're here in the end of July, because we have 2 days left in July. By the way, I was wrong about the NFL preseason starting today. It actually starts on the 31st. I thought it started on the 30th. But anyway, we got a day left, 2 days left in July. We get into the beginning of August. These guys already have their quarterbacks, or they already have their 2 quarterbacks that they're looking for a battle. Or if you're FAMU, you got 7 quarterbacks. But regardless, you probably have your core of what you're looking at the quarterback position if you're a good team. Now, if you're not a good team, Marquee Adams may be able to go there and say, they don't have a quarterback at all. I can do this. And if he does, and if he goes that route, okay, but he's probably going to a bad team that he's going to have to uplift. And that's something that we need to acknowledge because guys want to win. I don't know why he left Delaware State. I don't know what that's about. Maybe they did say we wanted to go into a different direction. I don't think so. I think that he was pretty solid, and I thought they would have rolled with him. But they did find a new quarterback expeditiously, so maybe they already were contacting Caden Bennett. I don't know why Marquee Adams decided to leave Delaware State. What I do know is that he's out of there. And now that he's out of there, he has to find a new home. He has to learn a new playbook. He has to get chemistry with new wide receivers. He has to develop a sense of comfortability with new coaches. Like everything is new. I just don't know if this is good for him. Because you look at Jackson State, maybe he feels like he can soak up game, but you're not going to redshirt. You're not going to, unless you just sit out, which we've seen. Who did that? Isaiah Guthrie did that. Isaiah Guthrie just flat out sat out a season. He just didn't play. So if you just don't do that and you don't transfer anywhere, then you will keep your 2 years of eligibility and you can come back. And I think as a quarterback, you feel a little bit better about him doing that as opposed to a running back, or I don't think it's, I got to be in the flow of the game as much, right? Like a linebacker who ain't hit nobody in a year, I might be looking at you sideways. But a quarterback, I'd be more accepting of that. Unless you just sit out, there's a good chance that Marquee Adams is going to go somewhere where he's not going to start, or he's going to go to a really bad team. And I don't know if he wants to do that. Most people want to transfer, especially if they were already a starter, to a spot that is a better team than what they were originally at. I don't know if he can do it. I just don't. So this is going to be really difficult because you look at Jackson State, Jacobian Morgan, he ain't budging. Jacobian Morgan is your starting quarterback at Jackson State, point blank, period. Let's not even question it. He is your starter at Jackson State, period. At the same time, Jackson State could say, we'll let you sit here for a year, soak up some game. We like having multiple competent quarterbacks. We had that last season. We want to add you to the mix just in case something does happen to Jacobian Morgan. I could see the appeal for JSU, but for Adams, you're hoping, knock on wood, you're relegated to needing an injury to get you on the field. As far as Southern goes, you got Cam McCoy and Jalen Woods, and I think they're battling it out. If you jump in now, you're really behind the curve. I don't know. It's difficult to make up ground that late when they feel good about the quarterback or quarterbacks that are on their roster. So it'll be very difficult for me to look at this situation with Marquee Adams. But I'm interested because the guy's talented. I think he's a really good quarterback. He was a freshman All-American. He only played 6 games last year, but he had a great game against Campbell. I think he's a really talented quarterback. I just think he's in a difficult situation with him entering the portal this late in the game. People have already kind of made their decisions. So I'll be looking forward to what happens with him, both in the immediate and then also throughout the fall, if that is what he goes with. Anyway, as he puts forward, Trey Holly. Oh, man, I'm already feeling good about my take. Because Terrence Graves has changed his tone on Holly in a great way. And let's break that down as we close out today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a week since Trey Holly has been at Southern's practice, and he's already making a quick impression on Terrence Graves. I'd say he's even won over the coach. When you look at what Graves said recently, as opposed to what he said when Holly first entered the program, it's a drastic difference in a very it's a drastic difference in a very subtle way, right? So, first thing he says, as far as this week, first thing I want to highlight that he says is that Holly has been as advertised. And if Holly is as advertised, we're talking about the number 4 running back in the nation. We're talking about the all-time leader by, like, I think either 2,000 or so. He's in the 10,000. The next closest guy was in the 8,000s. We're talking about in state history. Louisiana State history. If he's as advertised, we're talking about a speedster. Type in Trey Holly touchdown versus Army. It'll come up with the whole highlights. It's the very last one. So it's at the very end of that video if you're on YouTube. Type that in and you're going to see a speedster with great vision. I know it's just one play, so you don't want to highlight too much, but really strong vision on that play in a great burst that is not just one play. Right, like that's just not one play. He didn't play much in his true freshman season at LSU, but there was an expectation that he was going to come in and he was going to be a serious force within that running back room. Legal problems obviously derailed everything. He's looking to get his life back together as far as on the football field. He's looking to prove his innocence in the courtroom. We're obviously hoping for that because throw the football away. We want to make sure that Trey Holly, an innocent man, is not going or is not under allegations for something that he didn't do, that he's not serving time for something that he didn't do, right? You want to clear his name because these type of things do stain. These type of things do stay on you for a long time. So when Trey Holly, you want him to prove his innocence in the court, but at the same time, what we can focus on right now until that court date is set, because I don't think it's set yet, is the field. And what he can do on the field is be a difference maker. This is from an HBCU sports article where they quoted Graves as saying he's a difference maker. Everyone could see it right away. That means he jumps off the field. That means you can't miss him, which is not shocking because I know who Trey Holly is. I know what he's about. I remember him coming out of high school. So I'm very aware of the talented running back that Trey Holly is. My thing about him is we just got to get him on the field. At first, it was we don't want to put any extra pressure on him. Let's just see what he does. That was when he first got there. That's what Terrence Graves was saying. Now, Trey Holly is a difference maker, and everyone could see it right away. Man, Trey Holly is going to be your number 1 running back, and it would not shock me. I actually expect Trey Holly to be the best running back in the SWAC. I just do. He was supposed to be one of the best running backs in the SEC at one point, right? Like building up to that because he was a top 5 running back in the nation coming out of high school. So it wasn't crazy to think that he could eventually come up and be one of the better running backs in the Southeastern. Well, you know what? He's still in the South, but he's in the Southwestern. All right. No longer in the Southeastern Conference, he's in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I think that he can work his way into being that extremely quickly. I still view this as a 1-year rental. I do. I actually believe if he's able to clear his name and have a really good season, he'll be back at LSU probably for the spring 2026 season. I have no false beliefs. I have no delusions about what this is. This is somebody who, at the end of the day, did not want to sit stagnant. I don't know how he feels about LSU's ruling, that the suspension and everything. I think it's just an LSU rule they can do nothing about, right? So I don't think they could budge on it. But if he still has good ties there, I expect him to play a year at Southern, come back and play at LSU. I'm scrolling down his Twitter and you see, I wish I was in Baton Rouge, or I wish I was in Tiger Stadium right now on the first game. Like, he wants to be there. As long as there's no ill will, as long as there's not any bad relationships from how this transpired, I expect him to be an LSU Tiger in 2026. As long as he performs well and the legal situation clears up. Those 2 things are a must, and we hope for both of them. I think that I kind of stand by everything that I said earlier. I stand by everything that I said earlier this week, or was it late last week? It was late last week. I stand by all of that. I think that he is a SWAC Offensive Player of the Year candidate. I believe that he is the type of running back that can make Southern a even bigger contender in the SWAC. I think that he is a true impact player. And Terrence Graves, after a week saying, hey, he's as advertised, you know what the advertisement said. The advertisement said this LSU player who was a dog in high school didn't fail at LSU. He did not fail at LSU, is now at Southern. That's important because a lot of times you'll see these guys who failed, couldn't get on the field, whatever you want to call it. That's not Trey Holly. That's not the reason he fell to Southern. Southern stumbled into some real luck here because of some situations that are hopefully soon proven soon proven false. I don't know. I'm hoping he's proven innocent. I don't know how I was trying to say that right there, but you get the point. But anyway, yeah. It's simple, guys. He said that, look, Terrence Gray said there's only a few ways that you can really run the football, right? There's not too many tricks to it. Run left, run inside, run right, run outside. Like it's simple. And for me, it's just about letting that talent take over. I'm super excited. It just reached a point where Trey Holly, and I'm going to give it some room because maybe I'll do this at one point. Trey Holly is in my top 3 to 5 players that I'm excited to watch in 2025. Other guys who jump to my mind, Walker Harris, Eric Hunter. Those are 2 guys. Travis Terrell. Those are 4 guys that really jump to my brain of I'm excited to see them in 2025. Trey Holly is undoubtedly in that group. So as we wrap up today's episode, tomorrow we'll be back with the East-West Shrine. Top 1,000 players. We had 8 HBCU players make it, including 1 from the Division II ranks. We'll get into that on tomorrow's episode as long as nothing crazy happens in that time frame. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.